The vast majority of FSBOs will list their house with an agent before it sells. And when I say vast majority, you got to understand the dynamics, right? The 2024 statistics says 93% of for sale by owners list their home with an agent. I have 11 active listings right now. 45%, right? 5 of 11, 45% of my active listings at this exact moment are from FSBO relationships that I create.
But today, I got a great one for you because we have 𝐿𝐴𝐿, a top producing agent, a coach, an influencer. Is that fair to say? A real estate influencer guru, really smart guy when it comes to approaching real estate on the basis of relationships, right? And the interesting thing that Walter has done is kind of take that relationship first principle and applied it to for sale by owners. What? Yes. How? We're going to find out today. That's what we're going to talk about today. So, Walter, welcome to the show today. Why don't you give people, for the people that don't know who you are, they might not, might be a few people there that are getting introduced to you for the first time. Who is Walter Ķīķ, and why should we listen to you about this whole FSBO topic?
Yeah.
Go for it, Walter.
Well, I mean, it's hard to top the intro you already gave me, man. I don't know about the guy who knows everything and guru, and I wouldn't say influencer, but some people would. I am at heart a Hawaiian shirt guru. It's 5 o'clock on the East Coast, 5 o'clock somewhere shirt. I'm
Nice.
a Navy veteran, got into real estate while I was active duty Navy, did very well in real estate, 2 different states, actually sold my first real estate business when I moved to Florida. Became a coach because agents were just asking me questions, right? It wasn't like I'm gonna coach to try to make money from agents, right? There's a lot of, the those who can do and those who can't teach, right? That wasn't the idea. I was just getting all these people that would reach out to me and ask questions. Hey, Walt, what are you doing? Oh my gosh, we see all of the stuff you're doing. And so I just started having coffee with people, answering their questions, giving them some advice. And I realized that there was a really great need for coaching in the real estate space, and not, again, not paid guru BS, but genuinely agents just needed something that they weren't getting. And so I started coaching. We wrote a book. My coaching partner and I, we're actually in the process of writing a second book right now. So we just do a lot of fun stuff. The goal is to help the entire industry improve, and we just try to do that one successful agent at a time wherever they might need to be.
So
That's it in a
I love
nutshell.
it. I'm loving it. It's resonating with me. I'm part of your target audience. But Walter, tell me. I mean, you're coming from you're coming from contribution. You want to help out the industry, but why start at for sale by owner? Why FSBO? What makes that an attractive option to get listings?
Yeah.
What makes Walter Ķīķ a good person to teach us about
So
FSBO today?
let me take the last question first. Why should you listen to me? All right. I'm sure there are other methods out there. I'm not the foremost expert of the world, I'm sure. I just have a unique approach and it works. When I say it works, I'll give you some data. Um, I was looking up in the MLS before I got on this live call. I have 11 active listings right now. 45%, right? 5 of 11, 45% of my active listings at this exact moment are from FSBO relationships that I created. At any given point in my career, 20 to 50% of my business on any given quarter has been from FSBO relationships that I created. So when you think about that from a perspective of, I might know a thing or two because I do it, ever since I got my real estate license, I've been working this FSBO process. I've refined it. I've improved it over the years. So that's why. It's not that I'm perfect and I'm not like the utmost guru. I just do it. And I try to teach what I do because it works for me. And if it works for me, it probably works for other people. Now, go back to the first question, why FSBOs? I got started calling FSBOs because of my particular dynamic, right? Imagine, and I know agents have bumped into this before, being in a new market with no sphere, et cetera. Imagine transferring into a market with the Navy that you've never lived in, you have no background in, you know, 0 people. And then all of a sudden go, I'm going to get my real estate license because I'm going to retire soon. So you don't have all those traditional things to lean on. I'll ask my family to help. I'll talk to my sphere. I've got my church crowd. I've got all these people that I've known for years. I had none of that. And so I just looked and I said, well, I know I have to have relationships in order to do business. and I know I have to have conversations with people in order to build relationships, who can I have a conversation with? And FSBOs just came to the top of that list because they want to have a conversation, right? They may not want to have a conversation with every agent, and that's because some of the agents don't approach it the right way. But let's think about what we know about FSBOs. They want to sell their house. I'm in the business of helping people do that. You don't have to search for their info, right? You don't have to hire a dialer service. You don't have to skip trace anything. You don't have to really dig. Their information's readily available all over the place. Here's my address. Here's my pictures. Here's my name. Here's my number. Give me a call. When you learn to have the conversation correctly, and I caveat when you learn to do it correctly, because there's a lot of ways to do it incorrectly, right? The conversation actually is super easy. It's fun. It's low pressure. It's not salesy. And so you build great relationships. Now, the other reasons I think FSBOs is just phenomenal. I'm a little bit of a nerd, right? I'm a financial guru. I analyze companies before I buy their stock. I'm just a geek, right? So I always know the data points. I always know the stats. The vast majority of FSBOs will list their house with an agent before it sells. And when I say vast majority, you got to understand the dynamics, right? The 2024 statistics says 93% of for sale by owners list their home with an agent. So here I've got someone who wants to sell their house. I know exactly how to find them. It's an easy conversation to build a relationship. And 93% of the time, if I'm just in front of them when they make that decision to list, I'll list their house. If I don't list their house, maybe I bring a buyer and we close the deal anyway. If I don't bring a buyer, but I've helped them in some way, and actually they got to accomplish what they wanted, which was sell the house without having to pay the extra few percent on the listing side, they love me to death. They become great referral partners because we're never going to not stay in touch with people once we've built a relationship. So there's all these layers of reasons that FSBOs are absolutely phenomenal people to have conversations with if you want to build relationships that are going to close business.
So interesting. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Well, we're gonna break it down. But I'm going to take it a little bit of a step back and go, I think a lot of the, resistance, resistance from agents to approaching for sale by owners. Actually, I think there's two. There's two main, at least, mental blocks that agents have when they're approaching for sale by owners. One of them, I think, at least I'll talk from personal experience. We were all taught this approach, this script of, you know what, I have a buyer. Right? The bait and switch script. I think we were, for some reason, that was either, I don't know, maybe that was in bold or that was in one of these, very famous, well-known approaches to FSBO is to kind of tell me you have a buyer, but you don't really have a buyer, right? Not really, but get your quote unquote foot in the door. And once you're face to face, you kind of, hand-to-hand combat. You smack them on the head and they're going to list with you eventually, right? So that is, I don't know if you think that's a fair characterization or not, but that's how I perceived that script. And
it is, and I talk about that a lot,
thing, right? Isn't that a real thing?
It absolutely is a real thing, and I talk about that specific thing a lot. I tell agents all the time, if you're trying to build relationships with people, don't ever lie to them, right?
It's like common sense, right?
And here's the thing, right? They're human beings. They're not morons. If I can see that the size, the shape, the location, and the price, I know without, well, let me get in there and take a look so I know if it's right for my buyers. Bull crap. I already know if it's right for my buyers based on size, shape, location, and price. Sure, there might be some nuances. Maybe it's not the perfect fit. But that line of, well, I got lots of buyers, but I don't know which one it's right for till I come and see it in person. When can I schedule that? They see right through that. You're just a salesman trying to be a schmuck, trying to convince them to do what they don't want to do.
Maybe it worked in the 90s when they wrote that script. Possibly. Perhaps.
I would never do that. I would never advise someone to do
that. I'd say that's one big block. I think that's one limiting belief. Let's call it that. Limiting belief around the approach to FSBOs. One is that you have to use the bait and switch tactic. Otherwise, why would they talk to you? Number one. And number two, agents in general fear getting chewed up by FSBO, right?
Sure.
Because a lot of times, they'll put in the listing description. If you're an agent, do not call me unless you have a buyer. Like they're putting it like boy, you've seen it, right? All caps.
Oh yeah.
No agents, don't call me. And then agents making this call, the hand's already shaking. You can barely dial the number because you already have the perception that you're going to get chewed up because you're not listening to the instruction. You're already making them mad. You're the 15th agent to give them a call. I'd say those are the two big reasons. And let me know if I'm missing any. Those are the two main limiting beliefs that stop agents from approaching, even starting a conversation with a for sale by owner. So, well, tell me how your approach is different than that. How your approach overcomes those beliefs.
Yeah. So first of all, I agree with both of those 100%. I think the third one is a little bit more deep rooted in that most human beings have a fear of the unknown.
Oh,
so
yeah. Oh, 100%.
Regardless of what you're doing, FSBOs, expires, geo-prospecting, going to the mall and saying hi to somebody, we blow up the unknowns so big in our head. Oh my gosh, they're going to call the police on me and threaten to sue me, and they're going to file an FCC complaint and blah, 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 blah. We honestly, this is what we do to ourselves because the fear of the unknown is so terrifying in our own head that most people just never pick up the phone to try the call. And then those other two, absolutely right. They're afraid to get rejected, right? Let's boil it down to that. It's a fear of rejection. They're going to say no to me. Why would I bother? And it's funny. So you mentioned the ones that are like, no realtors. True story. This actually happened to me when I moved from Virginia to Florida. I was remodeling my house. So I was living with my sister, who was a realtor for 10 years. And she's always been, well, I'll just pay for leads. I don't like to cold call. I'll pay for leads. And I'm like, you're cold calling the leads you're paying for. Just do it for free, right? So in her neighborhood, she lived in a really nice neighborhood. It was a closed neighborhood. You had to drive down the main road, make a side road, drive down to the end, turn into the side. Like nobody passed into that neighborhood unless they already lived there. 3 houses up the road from her was a FSBO sign in the back of this closed off neighborhood. And I went online to find it. It didn't exist online. The sign was their only marketing. I felt bad for them. That's right. That's not going to sell the house. But across the bottom of the sign, it said on the top 3-2 waterfront golf course, blah, 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 price, phone number. Across the bottom, in this biggest, boldest Sharpie you can make, it said, no realtors, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation.
Ooh, right there. Right there.
And I went, yeah, I'm going to call him anyway. Now, most agents would assume that's going to be a fast conversation. Because the moment you say the word real estate, you're like, I said no realtors, click. Click. I had a 21-minute long conversation with that seller, which started with, hey, I saw your sign. I'm out right up the road from you. I saw it said no realtors. I'm assuming that meant no listing agents, right? You're okay with working with a buyer's agent if I brought you a buyer and a great deal, right? And they said, nope, I'm not working with any agents. That was the first 30 seconds of the call. 21 minutes later, we ended the call with, well, if it's not under contract by March, I'll probably list it with somebody. There you go. Right?
That's an entry.
Most agents would have had this huge, like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can talk to them. They're human beings just like the rest of us. All right. So moving on to why I do it how I do it a little bit differently, right? Again, I like to understand the psychology behind the conversation I'm having, right? I teach a course called Quality Conversations, how to build relationships that build your business. And it's a lot of different strategies. FSBOs is just one of them. But in that, I talk about the psychology, right? The fear versus the unknown, and then understanding who we're talking to and where they're at, right? Psychologically, mentally. We all know that a FSBO has made at least one firm decision, right? We don't know everything on their mind yet. We don't know all the decisions they might have made, but we know they've made one decision. I don't want to list my house with an agent. So if your goal is to convince them to do something they don't want to do, well, you're ice skating uphill right from the start, right? Let me ask everybody on the call. You could drop it in the chat for me. When was the last time, and just say no if it's never happened. When was the last time you made a decision? You personally made a decision. I'm either going to do this or I'm not going to do this. And then at random, some stranger called you and convinced you to change your mind and do the thing you said you didn't want to do? When's the last time that happened to you? Oh, wait, it hasn't, right? Exactly, Omar. Never. It doesn't happen. Never. So why would we assume it's any different with the fellow human being that just happens to have a house for sale? We know they don't want to list with an agent right now in this moment in time, but we also know that there's a 93% probability they are going to change their mind. I don't have to force that conversation. I just have to help them, add value, be their friend. And when they make the decision to list their house with a realtor, are they going to reach back out to one of the 17 schmucks who tried to convince them to do something they did not want to do? Or are they going to reach out to the one agent who's genuinely been trying to help them this whole time and follows up every week? Kind of a no-brainer, right? And so my approach is very different. I actually, like, literally maybe last year and a half, 2 years ago, I rewrote my script to just right from the get-go, like as soon as the word real estate comes out of my mouth, I address that elephant in the room. So as I'm calling, right, I always, basic psychology, right? I want to start the conversation on a positive note. And so I'm going to ask them some questions I know the answer is yes to. It's very simple. If they say no to me in the first 30 seconds, we're starting the conversation on a negative. If they say yes to me, we're starting the conversation on a positive. It's basic psychology, right? So I'm going to ask them when I call, hey, is this the owner of 123 Main Street? I know who I'm calling. I pulled their number right off Zillow. I know who this is, right? But they're going to say yes. And then they'll say, yeah, it sure is. I'm like, great. And is that still for sale right now? It's been on Zillow for 3 days. I know it's still for sale. I know they can say yes to this, right? And then the third question I usually ask is, and it looks like you're trying to sell that on your own. Is that right? And at some point across those three, depending on the client, the seller, maybe it's at the last question, maybe it's in the middle. They're going to ask, they're going to say yes, yes, yes. And then they're going to say, who's this? Because you notice I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm just, hey, yes, yes, yes. Okay, great. We're rolling the positives. And then as soon as they say, who's this? I say, hey, listen, my name's 𝐒𝐿𝐞𝐫 with Epic Realty. I'm a local realtor. Hey, before we go any further, do me a personal favor. Take a deep breath. And I pause for a second to let them breathe. And I say, listen, I know you're getting bombarded with phone calls from other agents trying to convince you to list your house with them, or investors trying to offer you half of what it's worth. That's not what I'm calling you for. I don't even want to talk about listing your house. Is that okay? Now, they're going to say yes to that too, right? I don't want to talk about listing your house. Is that okay? Of course it's okay. I know that's the one thing they don't want to talk about.
That's all they want.
And so that's how I literally address that right at the start. And I feel like they really appreciate that, honestly. Like, hey, listen, I'm not calling about your house. I don't want to list your house. No, I don't even want to talk about it. Is that okay? And then typically the next thing out of their mouth is some variation of, well, why the hell are you calling me, right? Exactly. They all verbalize it somewhat different, but they're like, oh, what do you want? And so then I tell them, listen, I genuinely just love to help people. My entire life has been service. I put time on my calendar every week to call the for sale by owners in my market to offer them some ideas about how I might be able to help them sell their house on their own. Do you get 15 minutes just to talk about that? What's the worst? They say, no, I don't want you to help me sell it on my own. Thank you anyway. Okay, great. Listen, frankly, if that's your attitude, I don't want to do business with you. Have a great day, right? But more often than not, they're like, this guy wants to just help me sell it on my own. He doesn't want to list it. Oh, sure. What do you got, bro? And that opens the conversation, right? Now we are on equal footing. We're just going to have a great conversation and see where we can add value. And the value, it's as many value propositions as I can add into this particular scenario before they say no thanks, right? So the first obvious thing is, hey, listen, let's get the obvious thing out of the way. Are you open to working with a buyer's agent if I brought you a qualified buyer and a great deal on your house? I can't even tell you a percentage because it's so low. How many would say no to that? No, not even working. I've literally once in my entire career, the scenario I just gave you, once my entire career said, no, I don't even want to work with a buyer's agent. Don't bring me a deal. Right. So they're always, that's valuable. Yeah, sure. Bring me a buyer. Absolutely. I'll work with you. Great. Hey, listen, would you mind if I did some proactive marketing? It's not going to cost you a dime. I'll take care of it. But I'd like to get the right buyer so we're not wasting each other's time. I will screen them, vet them, make sure they're qualified and interested before I schedule a showing with you. Could I use your photos and could I market your property to generate more buyers that I can vet for you? Could I do that for you? Yeah, sure. Knock yourself out. Photos are online. Go ahead. Great. Hey, listen, these days, one of the things that really help drive great marketing is video content. Would it be possible for you and I to meet at the house for 15 or 20 minutes so I could do just a couple quick video walkthroughs to help with that marketing so I can find the right buyers? Are you open to that? Maybe they say yes, maybe they say no, right? And I'm just, hey, listen, if I'm going to find the right buyer anyway, and I'm going to do the marketing to get them in front of me, are you open to me hosting an open house for you? And I'll just drive all the buyers to the house at the same time so that we're not going onesie, twosie, having to schedule these showings. It'll save us both a little bit of time and energy. I'll just come over on the weekend for a few hours and I'll just market an open house. Are you cool with that? Right. And they can say yes or no, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to offer as much value as I can offer them. And wherever that value goes, it goes. And the other things we like to talk about, I want to talk about their listing, what they have. So when it's on Zillow, it's on FSBO.com, it's on ForSaleByOwner.com, wherever you find it, right? It's on Marketplace, maybe.
Marketplace.
Zillow is really the go-to. I'm going to talk to them about their photos. And I'm going to be honest with them. If they're not great, I'm going to tell them, hey, listen, you took your photos in late afternoon, right? Yeah, how'd you know that? Well, listen, the sun glare cutting through the kitchen windows is really distracting from those countertops. As a realtor, I can see they're really nice countertops, but most buyers are going to see that glare and be turned off. You should really take your photos between 9 a.m. and noon so you maximize the daily light, but you cut down on that sun glare. As a matter of fact, photos are so important, I don't even do my own. I hire that out to a professional. My photographer, honestly, is why I sell houses so fast and for so much money. I'm happy to text you her info. You do not have to use me to use her, but she's a rock star. Would you like her number? Right. I'll talk about their listing description. It's, hey, listen, real quick, 4 beds, 2 baths, big backyard. I don't feel any emotion when I read that. And you got to understand, Mr. Seller, the point of the listing description is to help a buyer mentally walk through their new home so they want to buy it. Can we talk a little bit about how we could write that better? Tell me a little bit more about your house. Tell me about the floor plan. From the front door, what do I see? What about this? When was the last time you updated this? How about this, right? And I'm literally gonna help them write a better narrative. Because again, it's valuable to them, but it's also going to help me in the marketing because it's better photos and it's better content, right? So it's a win-win. We'll go down the list as much as we can help them. And then the last thing I always offer, and if you guys don't have one, make your own, right? It's worth it. I tell them, hey, listen, this sounds great. I'm super excited. More than happy to help you. I hope we do a great deal together. By the way, whether you find a great buyer or I do, finding the buyer is just the beginning of the real estate transaction. There's a process here. There's legal frameworks, there's timelines, there's financial obligations on both sides. So I wrote a 31-page for sale by owner guide that walks the seller through every single aspect of the real estate transaction. Would you like a copy of it? What's the best email you got? I'll send it to you. Ask me any questions you got. Right. And that's what I end with, because 1, last bit of value. 2, I capture their email for more follow-up. And I send them the guide if they ask for it. I don't send it unsolicited. I make them say, yes, I would like that. That's valuable to me. And then I email it to them. And so that's my conversation with them is, can I do this for you? Can I do that for you? Could I do this for you? Could I do that for you? Up until the point where they say, no, thanks. I don't want you to do that. Okay, no problem. I'll do the rest. I'll do the other stuff. No problem at all.
Gotcha.
By the way, would you like the guide? And then we wrap up the call. Now, I've almost never had one say, I don't want you to market my property to find buyers. Like, it just doesn't happen. Sometimes they're like, I don't want you to come into my house and do video. That's now you can market with the photos I have. Okay, great. I'll market with the photos you got. No worries at all. Sometimes they say, nah, I don't know if I want you to host an open house for me. We still live here, whatever the case. But you can market the property, and I appreciate that, but I don't want to do an open house. Okay, hey, no problem at all. I'll market it. Hopefully I find the right buyer. When I do, I'll reach back out to you. We'll have a conversation. You just take that value as far as you can take it, because all we're doing here is building the relationship through contribution and value. And then here's where it gets super, super important, right? We are going to follow up with them consistently. This is where agents suck at life, statistically speaking. That's not 𝐿𝐿𝐞𝐫 being mean to you. Here's the facts, right? Here's the data doesn't lie. This is sales in general, not just real estate, but sales people in general. 92% of salespeople follow up once or never. 92%, one time or never. Okay. Now,
That's crazy.
80% of closed sales happen after the 5th attempt. You guys see the disconnect? Once or never, 92%. That's how agents operate. But it takes 5 or more, 80% of the time, to close a deal. If you don't follow up, you're not going to get business. And again, we already discussed the stat. 93% of for sell by owners will list with an agent. That's a statistical fact. That means the follow-up is so freaking critical. And that's where agents fail the most. So here's what we're going to do. If you follow what I teach, we're going to follow up with those FSBOs that we interact with, that we engage with, that they say yes to us, market my property, do the thing, right? Whatever it is. We are going to follow up them at a minimum, once a week. Once a week, I'm going to call them back. Hey, John, it's Walt. I just wanted to touch base with you, man. I've been marketing your property. So far this week, I've had 618 people view my marketing, and I've had 13 of them share it with somebody. I'm still having conversations, but I don't have any qualified buyers that are really serious yet. I'm still weeding through those. How'd it go for you this week? Did you get any showings? Did you get anyone that's interested? Did you have any calls that weren't investors trying to offer you half what it's worth, right? We're just gonna follow up. These follow-up calls can be 3 minutes. Here's what I'm doing. Here's the results. How are you doing? What are your results, right? If there's some side tangents that we can take about family and work and job, that's fine. And build a rapport. At the end of the call, I ask a very simple question. Is there anything else that I can do for you right now, John? No? Okay, great. Have a wonderful week. Talk to you soon. Every week, this is what I did. This is what's working. This is the conversations I've had. How'd it go for you? What are you getting? Is there anything else that I can do for you right now? Is there anything else that I can do for you right now? Is there anything else that I can do for you right now? Now, guess what happens 3, 4, 6, 8 weeks of consistent, here's what I'm doing for you. Here's the results I'm getting. Is there anything else that I can do for you? At some point, 93% of the time, that question gets answered with, well, what would it look like if you just listed this? Hey, could we just have a conversation about you selling this for us? Sure, John, if you want to talk about that, I'd love to, man. Would it be worth me just meeting you at the house and we can talk it over? What's a good time? I don't have to ask for the listing. They're going to ask me to list it when they're ready, because I'm their friend who's offering value, who's following up consistently, who's genuinely asking them, how's it going? What else can I do for you? 93% of the time, they're going to ask an agent to list it. It'll be me.
Yeah, this is great stuff. I mean, this is awesome. This is amazing. I'm gonna play a little bit of devil's advocate here. I'm gonna be the voice of the realtor, right? The voice of the realtor. I know you guys want to ask this question. I know it. I can feel it. But I'm gonna be the advocate here, right? Devil's advocate. So, Walt, you've got this cascade of value, right? You're like, I can take better pictures. Use my photographer. Hey, this listing description is not good. Let me help you fix it. Take my FSBO guide. This open house, everything. What would you say to the agent that's concerned that you're giving away the bag? Oh my goodness. Walt is working for them for free. Why would they hire you? You're already working for them. How would you respond to that objection?
What do the numbers say? 93% of the time, they're going to list with an agent because they can't sell it on their own. It doesn't matter. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter how much knowledge I give them. It doesn't matter how better we write the write-up, how better their photos are, right? That stuff does help. And once in a blue moon, it might help them sell it on their own. Here's the thing, you got to be okay with that. Genuinely, I'm happy for them if they sell it on their own. I will call them. When I call them and I say, hey, John, how's it going this week? They're like, hey, we're under contract. Holy crap, man, that's fantastic. I'm excited for you. When are you closing? Tell me about the deal. The relationship doesn't end because I helped them. It's just beginning.
I got you.
Because guess what? Aunt Sally is going to need a realtor one day. Uncle Joe is going to need a realtor one day. Mom, who's going to move closer to the grandbabies, is going to need a realtor one day. That FSBO will become a referral partner once they're your friend. There's zero downside to this. And I would argue that it's a rare occasion where all of the help you give them, it translates into them selling it on their own. Again, the data doesn't lie. 93% of the time, they list it with an agent before it sells.
And you see
we
that
just know that that's how it works. And there's another aspect of actually, Ryan hit the nail on the head in the chat. 100%. I'm marketing the listing to generate buyers for me, to build my social media, to build my presence in all of the local Facebook groups that I'm going to post the listing in. So even if I don't sell the listing by listing it, I'm generating buyers that might buy this house. They might buy another house. They might have a house to buy and sell. I'm still generating business for myself for $0 out of pocket simply by helping other people. There's no downside to this, none whatsoever.
So, and well, just to be clear, right? That ratio, let's call it, 9 out of 10 times. Do you see that play out even with this approach, right? You don't change it from, I guess the objection would really be, you've changed it now to 50-50, right? Now it's a coin toss. Well, who knows? Oh my God, you're giving away too much. You're saying that coming for contribution is not gonna, mess up your chances.
You're not skewing the numbers. Gotcha. Maybe slightly, but let's say we went from 93% list with an agent to 87% because once in a blue moon you help them and they sell it on their own, right? It's a minuscule number, right? And here's the thing, right? You gotta understand, it's not even just that their photos are bad or their listing a description is great, right? What did we just say at the beginning of the call? Most realtors are afraid to call a FSBO. So it's not like the realtors who have their buyers shopping on the MLS are going to say, well, let me take a day and call all the FSBOs to see if I can bring my buyer. They're not even going to do it. So it doesn't matter how great the photos are, how great the write-up is. They're still only catering to about, when you break down all of the number, about 4% of the buyer population. Because 90% or so have a buyer's agent, about 6% more. The only reason they don't is because they're going to new construction and they use the builder's rep. So that leaves only 4% unrepresented without an agent. And the most agents won't call the FSBO anyway. So the FSBO at the end of the day is at best marketing their property to roughly 4% of the buyer population. No matter how great the photos are, no matter how great the write-up is, it's 4% of the population. That just is what it is, right?
And here's the other, let's call it objection, right? So Walt, you're going to lead us to believe that of the 11 active listings you got 5 FSBO sellers to ask you to list their home. Yeah. So that's how those, just to be super clear, people, of your 11 active listings, 5 FSBO sellers asked you, or at least initiated the conversation. Because, it's never going to become listing, right? It's never going to become listing. It is, what would it, if it looked like,
I'll tell you one more. So I just put a new listing on the market Wednesday. I put another new listing on the market last Wednesday. Both of those came from slightly different strategies. From the marketing of listings is how I got those. So 2 weeks ago, I was at 55% of my active listings were from FSBO relationships. I put a couple non-FSBO listings on the market now. I'll be honest with you, 50 to 55% of my business that's a little high. I've just been leaning into it more lately. It's a little high. But statistically, when I was consistently reaching out to FSBOs, even before now, years ago even, 20 to 40% of my business has been FSBO relationships pretty consistently throughout the year.
I'll call it a solid third. Call it a solid third of your
Yeah, you
listing
can call,
inventory
call a
at,
third,
at
right?
any given time.
Of the
It's gonna
deals
come
that
from
I
that.
closed, well, the deals that I closed or have pending for March, 33% were from FSBO relationships. So right out of third, right out of
It's
third.
right
That's a
there
fair
in that
amount.
range. It's in
Right.
that
So I don't
range.
know anyone who wouldn't want a third more business at no cost, no pressure, no lead generation cost, no marketing budget. Just pick up the phone and build relationships. No brainer.
Awesome. I love that. And so there's really two huge nuggets that I'm getting from this. Well, one is, the big one is like changing your mindset towards FSBOs, changing the approach and making it a value focused approach, making it a relationship focused approach. That's a big one from the start, from the get-go.
Yes,
You're going to
absolutely.
sound different. It's a pattern interrupt. You're going to stop, the brain's going to go, what? They're not going to expect what you're going to say. They're not going to expect what you're going to say, likely, right? That's one huge change. That's one huge difference. Being value first, and then seeing what happens, right? And then the second one is that relentless follow-up, right? I think is so key. I don't think there is a lead source that doesn't have that. I don't think that's that's kind of common across.
Yeah, that's
But in
universal.
this case,
Absolutely.
but in this case, you have a very specific process. You have a very specific script, right? That last part, it sounds like a very intentional question. It's a very intentional question. At the end, you have a structure to these follow-ups. It is, activity, result, and make the ask. Anything else? It's like a very specific format that you follow. And you're doing it once a week. You're doing it once a week. You're doing it once a week. It seems like that relentless follow-up. It's not either or. Like it's both. It's not
and that really truly is like the follow-up is, I cannot express it enough. I give you another example, completely off the subject of FSBOs. Another marketing strategy that I teach agents to use. I'm always hammering the follow-up, right? At least 5 attempts before 80% of the business happens. So I tell them the story. I have an active buyer right now in the $500,000 to $700,000 price range, completely ignored my engagement until the 7th time I reached out. And on the 7th attempt, his response was, Walt, I'm so sorry I haven't gotten back to you. It's been crazy this week. Yes, we still want to go see that house. Now, the house was a FSBO I was marketing. $500,000 to $700,000 price point, 7 attempts before they engaged with me because I listed a FSBO. All comes full circle, right? So the follow-up is super, super critical, even in other prospecting strategies. The other thing about the mindset piece, it really helps break down that fear of rejection, that fear of the unknown. This is how I approach this when I teach it to my agents. Can you help people as a real estate agent? Yes or no? Can you help people? Of course. Oh, yeah. Why would you be a jerk and not help somebody that you know you can help? If you know you can help them and you don't, you're kind of an asshole, pardon my French. Like, why would you not do that? So what that does for you, it kills the fear of the unknown because you know you can help them. You know you have value to offer. It kills the fear of rejection because if they say no to my offer of value, that's not a me problem. That's a them problem. They don't want the value I'm offering. That's okay. I don't have to take that personally. I'll call the next one and help them instead. I tried. They said no. We're moving on. And so when you really reframe your mindset to, I'm not selling people, I'm not convincing people, I'm not trying to convert them into a listing, I'm just reaching out to see where I can help them. Whatever happens, happens. It changes the dynamic behind your mindset. Like you're no longer afraid of them saying no. Okay, say no. No big deal. Call the next one. I'm just here to help. You saying no to me doesn't keep my bills from getting paid. The next one, I'll help the next one, right? It's okay. If you need something, reach out. I'm moving on, right? Now, the follow-up is really funny. So I said usually, 5th attempt is 80% of the business. I have had FSBOs within 2 weeks. Last year, I sold one up in Fleming Island. It's a funny story because she's now getting a real estate license and going to join me. It's weird how it happened. But same thing, right? Called her. Hey, I'm just trying to see where I might be able to help. I do this all the time. I love helping people. What about this? What about that? Could this help? Would you like to guide? Blah, 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 blah. Followed up with her the next week. How's it going for you? What do you need? This is what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. Followed up. Actually, no, I didn't follow up the second time. She reached out to me like a day before the second Friday follow-up. And she texted me and she said, Walt, I'd love to have a conversation about you listing the house. So I called her immediately. I said, hey, I got your text. What's up? Well, you know, we're ready to move. Could we have a conversation about you listing the house? Sure, I'd be happy to. Would you like to grab a cup of coffee? I can meet you at your house and we'll just talk it over. Yes, when can you meet me at the house? 24 hours later, I was sitting at her dining room table. Walked her through basic seller presentation, right? Nothing super crazy. I walk around the house. I get to know them. It's not a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Here's some basic numbers. Here are the comps. This is what we should list at. And I said, what questions do you have for me? And she said, where do I sign? Literally, that was her, where do I sign? And I said, oh, you know what? I don't, and this is what I love to do this to people. I say, I didn't bring any paperwork for you to sign. I'm not so arrogant that I would just assume you're going to work with me, but I can email you an electronic copy of it to sign as soon as you're ready. Yeah, here's my email. Send it to me. A done deal, right? We sold the house in a weekend. She loves me to death. She's never going to not be my friend. I sold her house in a weekend. It took her 2 months of trying on her own. Then she moves. She's still in this market. She just moved at a different location. And now she's working on getting her real estate license. And she wants to join my team.
You took a FSBO from hating agents,
right,
to literally joining
let's do this.
Joining the dark side.
It's just so much fun. There's so many layers of value when you just get to know people.
I think you change your perception of what this job is. I think you change the perception of what the approach is, because even some of the FSBOs are convinced that the agents, the bait and switch is a really nice way to say people are being very dishonest, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's, you know, that's a really nice, you know, bait and switch is a nice way to say agents are being truthful, they're being dishonest, right? That's a perception that they have. And absolutely. You kind of took someone that's in that camp, right? And kind of flipped it over. I think is, you know, pretty remarkable. And well, another voice of the customer kind of question, right? Voice of advocate of the agent. You know, Walt, you're coming value packed. You're trying to get these FSBOs sold. You know, you're helping them improve, because usually, you know, what the issue with the FSBO a lot of times is they're not presenting the property properly. There's some issues there, or they're mispriced, right? There's something there. And you know, how do you have that conversation either before or after the listing presentation, whatever happens, on telling them that they're not presenting the home in the right way, right? That's one, they're not presenting it in the best way possible. Or number two, they're not pricing it for the market. They're not pricing it competitively. How do you have that conversation with them in a way that makes them receptive to that, right? Because they probably heard that more than once already. Probably heard it from an agent, probably heard it from one of these investors, probably heard it from a million people, and they're ignoring all of them. Mm-hmm. How do you get through to someone that's kind of a little bit in their corner?
So they're ignoring them because they're all random strangers and they don't value their opinion. Okay, so that's important to know. So the question of how they're presenting the property and how they're pricing it, two different conversations at two different times, actually. So when we're talking about photos that aren't great, listing description that aren't great, I'm going to have that as part of the value proposition. I'm going to address that right away. Hey, here's what I see on your photos. I can tell that you gave it your best shot, but here's some tricks of the trade: the right timing, basic staging, rules of threes, color patterns, right? We'll just talk. And by the way, a professional photographer is only going to cost you a couple $100, but man, they're worth it. Would you like me to give you the info, right? I'll have that right away. Listing description, we'll talk about that right away. And again, it's, hey, listen, here's what I read. I don't feel any connection to that. Let's talk about this. And I tell them, let's talk about the psychology behind the buyers that are looking at this. So now it's not you suck. It's let me help you understand what the buyer sees.
That's interesting.
Let's rewrite this. Now, for the price piece, I will sometimes ask, just out of curiosity, how'd you come up with your price? Zillow said it was this range, so I went above it. Tax record said this, so I added 100. Uncle Joe said it was the greatest property he's ever played pool in, so whatever it is.
My neighbor
and
sold
I'm not
this much,
trying
and
to
I'm going to way
argue.
better house.
Yeah, right. My kids were born here, therefore it's worth more intrinsic value, right? We've all been there. I'm not
100%.
trying to argue that their value is wrong on this first call because I'm still a stranger, right?
Yeah,
They don't
100%.
value my opinion the way they need to for that conversation because the pricing it's a financial conversation, and psychologically the financial conversation is a more personal conversation. So we got to have some rapport. But I'll ask, how'd you come up with your pricing? And I'll say, all right, I've seen a few houses in the market that seem to sell a little bit different. Would you like me to run some numbers and tell you what I think the current market value is? If they say yes, I'll run a CMA. If they say no,
Oh,
hey, no worries.
wow.
Don't
So
stress it.
you'll even
Right?
you'll even do the CMA as
Because
part
look,
of the
I
value
know how to
stack.
do a CMA. I closed 40 deals in 2024. A CMA is not hard. It takes me 15 minutes. I'll take 15 minutes to build a genuine relationship and add some value. Because that also, again, that's one more reason for me to capture their email for my follow-up. Hey, I'm happy to run some numbers for you. Where do you want me to email you the numbers? Now I got their email, right? Everything has a corresponding. Now, the follow-up is where we're going to give the feedback. Hey, listen, I was marketing your property this week and I had 785 people view it, but only 3 shared it. And I've been doing this for a while. Statistically, that tells us a couple things. One, most people aren't interested in the property for some reason. And there's only a few things that affect interest in a property: the condition of the property, the location of the property, and the price of the property. I'm looking at your condition. Now that we've got these photos updated, you're in pretty good shape. I think it shows fairly well. And we can't change the location. That is what it is. So the only thing that leaves us with is price. And I feel like the market, based on these statistics, based on this data, not 𝐒𝐿𝐝𝐻's opinion, the market data might be telling us you're a little over the market value. I know you're at 3079 right now. 300 even would bring you into an entirely new price bracket where you open up your property to a whole different buyer demographic. Might be worth looking at. Right?
Because the crazy thing is that's a conversation you would have with any seller that you have a listing
right.
for.
I'm going to treat them
right?
like a seller client
100%.
until they
100%.
become a seller client. Right?
That's wild. That's wild. So you kind of you're surrounding them with the behavior and the language of them being your client until they become your client.
Exactly right.
So they're like
And
100%.
you can trickle in things like, here's another, this is a tip for everybody. It takes a little finesse to learn this. And if you don't do it, it's not going to shoot you in the foot, but it'll help you. Get used to using words that plant psychological seeds, right? I think your price is wrong. Nope. The market data seems to be suggesting you might be off on your price. That's so much easier for them to digest, right? I say things like, when I sell houses for people, I do boom, boom, boom. When I list my clients' houses, I typically do ABC. If I was pricing my client's house to put it on the market, I would be looking at 1, 2, 3. I'm reinforcing consistently, I sell houses, I list houses, I have seller clients. This is what I do.
Gotcha.
Without telling them, can I sell your house? Can I list your house? I want to sell your house. The value that we're offering is based on our personal professional experience because I do this every day. And we just plant those little seeds that Walt knows what the hell he's talking about. He does this all day long. So when they make that decision to list, it's even easier for them to reach out to me because now deep down in their psyche, not only am I their friend that's trying to help, but I'm also a market expert that does this regularly. And that's really all you need, right? If they need to decide on an agent, I want an agent I can trust, and I want an agent that knows what the hell they're doing. So we're constantly planting those 2 seeds. You can trust me. I'm your friend. I'm here to help. And by the way, I do this all day long. This is what I do for my sellers. This is my business. And it's kind of a no-brainer at that point when they make the decision. And then last piece on that, right? About the decision. If they decide to list with a different agent, doesn't matter. There are plenty of other sellers out there who are waiting for you to help them. Do not take it personally. Do not get stressed out and, oh my gosh, I helped them and now they're giving all this great knowledge I had to somebody else. Get that crap out of your head. We're just here to add value. And if for some strange reason they didn't reciprocate the value and want to work with you, they went with their Aunt Sally, be happy for them. They're going to get their house sold now. Don't stress over it. There's always another deal to happen.
I got you. Yeah, and it's a very, what you're describing, that, oh my goodness, they're going to take my knowledge and they stole it from me, right? It's a very scarcity mindset, right? It's like, oh my goodness, there's only a finite number of knowledge and they've taken it away.
Yeah.
There's only so many homes going to be sold and I've lost one, right? Versus more of an abundance mindset.
100%.
Of
100%.
I've got so much value to give, right? I've got so much value to give, and there's so many people out there that need it. I'm going to focus more on that in the audience than one person not seeing the value, not taking advantage of that, not wanting to move forward. That's great because I have the ocean, right?
Exactly right. I do that with agents too, right? And hopefully it sets in what I'm saying. A lot of times on my social media, someone will be like, "Ooh, I'm stealing that. Oh, I stole that. I'm stealing that." And anytime someone says I'm stealing that or I stole that, I reply, this is going to sound so silly, but it's just my thing. I reply and I put in quotations, "One cannot steal what is freely given," unquote. And then I put Waltonians 3:17. And that's just my way of saying, listen, if it's mine, it's yours, right? Knock yourself out. You're not stealing from me. I'm putting it out there so you can have it. When you just start getting into that mindset that this is not a competitive industry. There's not a single person on this call. Even if you were next door neighbors and you both had a real estate license, you're not competition. You're just colleagues that are collaborating to make the industry better while you serve clients. There's plenty of business to go around. There's clients that will work with you because they make a connection with your personality type and your communication style and your philosophies. And there'll be clients that work with your next door neighbor because their facial expressions connected with them and their psychological inputs. It's not your bad and their good. It's not your good and their bad. Different people connect with others in different ways. That is okay. There's plenty of business to go around. There's plenty of people to help. Just keep helping people and you'll do plenty of business.
I love that. And well, we're almost out of time here, and I want to be respectful of your time. But one big question, I want to take a little bit of a step back, because a lot of this approach, a lot of the I want to say the confidence, the strength that you need to kind of make this work and make it be less of a struggle and more of this is like an obvious thing for me to do, is that perception of value, right? Because a really smart guy that I remember, a prospecting coach, once told me that the reluctance to call, right? Prospecting coach, right? Reluctance to pick up the phone. The reason the phone weighs 10,000 pounds sometimes, it's because you perceive an absence of value, right?
Yep.
If you're calling people to bother them, that phone is going to weigh 10,000 pounds. You're eventually not going to want to pick it up because all you're doing is bothering people, right? How do you change that for an agent? You coach agents, you teach a lot of agents, right?
Yeah.
What is an effective way, right? And I'm putting you on the spot. We have 5 minutes left. In 5 minutes, tell me, how do you change that? Because I see a lot of these issues. The root cause is that.
No, you're 100%. You're right.
The agent doesn't believe they're adding value. The agent doesn't believe that they add value in helping out these sellers. That's why they'll never even pick up the phone. How do you change that mindset?
Yeah. So I like to break down the various value propositions, right? In the script, I'll call them value propositions, right? And I'll ask an agent, if you had a listing and your seller said, do everything you can to sell my house, would doing this be helpful? Would professional high quality photos help your seller sell their house? Yeah, of course. Okay, great. So you know that. That's knowledge in your bank. You know that that's helpful. Would social media marketing to promote that property and generate more buyers help your seller sell their house? Yeah, of course. Absolutely. That would have more buyers, more offers. Yeah, absolutely. Would hosting an open house for your seller and marketing the open house properly to drive traffic, would that help your seller sell their house? No brainer, right? Of course it would. And so would a guide that walks your seller through everything you're going to do for them, so there was no confusion, there was clear transparency, they knew exactly what they were walking into and what you were going to assist them with, would that take away some of the stress from your seller? Yeah, of course. Is a FSBO a seller? You already know
Brilliant.
everything that you're talking about is valuable to a seller. It doesn't have to be your seller for you to offer value. Right. And so once you brought it down to that level of, if this was your client and you were trying to do the right thing for them, would you do that? Of course I would. Would you do that? Of course I would. Would you do? Then you already know there's value there. Just go share the value. You don't have to think of some new whiz bang crazy thing to let me figure out how to convert this, handle this objection, come around the back angle. Just do what you would already do for your sellers that you know gets their house sold. That's the value. That's it. And now I realize that's a simplified answer, but and not every agent will grasp it right away, but it's the easy way to break it down and help them understand that they're not doing anything unique. They're not doing anything different. They're not coming up with some new strategy. They're just doing exactly what they would do anyway as a real estate agent, helping their client sell their house. And they already know that's valuable. And so understanding that they're not having to do anything different, it's the same conversation they're already having, alleviates a lot of that. Maybe I don't have what it takes to do this, because they start to realize very quickly, it's not about my intrinsic value as Walt, the person. My real estate value is I know what sells houses and you're trying to sell one. Let me see how I can help you.
That's crazy. Yeah,
hopefully that answers that question, but
100%. No, yeah. Another interesting topic would be, what if their intrinsic value as a person is the issue? That's a whole other, topic. But they can learn the skills that are valuable to the seller. I think that just making it about skills, I think takes that load away from it. It's not about you and your self-image. It is, hey, this is useful. You agree this is useful? Yes, then go do that. Right?
Yep.
Because a lot of them aren't doing any of this. Right. I mean, 99.9% of them are not doing anything like that. Hence, you can be helpful. Right? And set yourself apart. And and I guess your approach, I would summarize it. Let me know if this is fair. Treat the FSBO as your client, and your likelihood of them becoming a client is much, much higher. Treat them as if they're already a client. Assume that you can add value to them.
Treat them like your friend. Teach them like a seller. This is what I would do if I was selling your house. This is how I would do it if I was looking your house. When I list houses for people, this is what I do. Since you're my friend, I'm going to share with you how I would do this for my seller.
Wow.
Treat them like a seller. And more often than not, they're going to want to become your seller.
I love it. I like it. I like the simplicity of it, Walt. And I like the fact that it's coming from contribution. I think that's always the right answer, right? When in doubt, do that, right? I like it. And that it just seems like a much more approachable strategy for most agents. Because I think I would be hard pressed to find an agent that would say that they don't want to do that, or that wouldn't be helpful to the seller. I would struggle to find someone that would take that step. So I love it. And that's why you're here, sharing, this incredible knowledge. Walt, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. If people want to continue the conversation, maybe check out some of the other content. You've got a lot of stuff you do for agents and education. What is the best way for people to reach out to you?
Oh man. So I have a link tree that has absolutely all of my contact, my social profiles, phone, email, you name it. You can go to Facebook and look up Walter Key. I've got over 8,000 followers. I think I'm the only one wearing a Hawaiian shirt on Facebook. You'll find me. Or you can go to Linktree/Walt Key. And again, it's just really simple: phone number, email, website, Facebook, Instagram. It's all there. Reach out to me, whatever's good for you, whatever platform you're on. Happy to answer your questions. Happy to engage with you in any way I can.
Awesome, we'll do. And regardless of where you guys are watching this later, if it's on Facebook, if it's on YouTube, wherever we post this, we'll drop it in the comment. So if you're not live here in the Zoom right now, most people will actually watch this on a replay. We love it. That's no problem. Check out the comment wherever you're watching this, and we'll drop the information for Walt, so you can check him out on all the socials, or reach out direct, so you can catch more of his content. I think he does a great job. So Walt, again, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. I think hopefully you guys got something from this today, and you're looking at a different approach. So awesome. Thank you so much, man. See you on the next one. All right.